Welcome to the continued podcast adventures of three opinionated guys with mics and too much free time. Strong enough to stop a speeding movie rumor, more powerful than a bad comic book event, able to waste hours of time asking stupid questions to people who have better things to do. It's Dave, Ben, and John. It's Superhero Speak.
Hey everyone, you're listening to Superhero Speak, and I'm your host Dave.
And John.
And JD.
And we are here this week to talk about, what are we talking about, the eclipse?
Well, seeing as how cats and dogs aren't living together and we aren't experiencing mass hysteria, I believe that the eclipse left us about in the same place as we were when it started, which means Trump is still president.
Oh, damn it. But at least we have the defenders to save us.
Okay, well, 3 of them anyway.
Ooh, wait a minute.
Shots fired.
All right, well, before we get into all of that, yes, we're here to review Defenders. It was released this past weekend on Netflix. It is the what's the word I'm looking for? Culmination. Thank you. Yeah. It's the culmination of all of the Netflix series to this point, and we're going to review it. And first, we're going to go around the room, as always, and give our initial non-spoiler reaction to it. We'll start with JD.
I really enjoyed it. I don't think it's as character-driven as the solo shows. It's more popcorny. It's shorter, which I appreciated. It was entertaining. I highly recommend it. It was fun.
Cool. How about you, John?
I agree with JD that the shorter series, it was only 8 episodes, kind of fits, because doing like 12 or 13 episodes to keep this action running, I don't think. But overall, I think the show was, it was really good. It was 3 defenders and 1 whiny bitch. And so, it erred on the side of goodness, and I was pleasant. There were a couple episodes where I was actually sitting up in my seat going, yes, this is what I want to see. And then there were a lot of scenes where you're just saying, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. So, but overall, good.
Well, I enjoyed all 4 of the Defenders. I thought, yes, again, I agree. The 8 episodes was probably just about right, lengthwise for it. And again, it's the Defenders, so you're not going to get over the top, special effects, and they're the street level heroes, so they're not saving the world; they're only saving the city. But it was. I really enjoyed it. I think it was very well done. So, all right, if that's all you guys need, then go out and watch it if you haven't watched it yet. But now, moving forward, as always, here's where the spoiler starts. So if you haven't watched it, you don't want to be spoiled, stop here and come back later. Or if you don't care about spoilers, here we go. So obviously, John, you didn't care for our good friend Iron Fist this time around again.
Oh my God, Finn Jones. I mean, he's like a guy who's missing his boy band. He's just so whiny all the time and over the top, and that. Okay, if we can go spoilers, that one scene where he just walks right into the boardroom and starts saying, "I'm going to tell on all of you." Oh my God! I mean, I tell you, what's her name? Colleen Wing. She should have been. She could have taken his place, and she would have been much more awesome. Overall, he was the biggest problem I had with this. Second only to the pronoun game. Everybody's talking about the incident. Why don't you just say the attack of the Chitauri attack, or whatever they're calling? Why do you have to do that? They're all looking for the substance. What did you run out of like a fantasy name generator online? You could have. There's like 50 of them I could find. You could come up with a name for that stuff. I mean, did you get shamanized? I mean,
Right. No,
I just don't understand. I don't understand. So those are my 2 biggest things with. It sounds like I'm being like, well, actually, it sounds like I'm being me, but I did like that.
Yeah. I have to say, I thought Iron Fist was portrayed a little bit better this time around. Maybe that's because we're not spending 13 episodes with him. We're only spending a portion of 8 episodes with him. And I really enjoyed. They did a good job of portraying a friendship blooming between Luke Cage and Iron Fist, Danny Rand. Which hopefully will lead into something down the road.
That's because he finally had a chaperone.
But I agree with the him going by himself and walking into the boardroom scene just felt a little out of place. Like he goes, "Oh yeah, I have other ways to fight them," and I'm going to go in as a businessman, but then he goes in and threatens them. Like having a conversation with them and trying to figure out what's going on.
So I'll be honest, I missed the Iron Fist TV show. I got super busy around March, is when I was getting that Kickstarter ready to go, and I heard so many bad things about it that I intentionally didn't watch it. So I guess this was my first experience dealing with the Danny Rand character in the Marvel TV universe. Is he an idiot? That's kind of what I got from the character, and that's why it didn't bother me. Like, is he supposed to be someone that just doesn't understand how our culture operates, or how people, like, is he socially inept, Ted? Because that's the vibe I got off him the whole time. And I don't know if that was intentional or not, but that's how I read the character.
That is kind of how they portrayed him in his series. Like, because he grew up in Kunlun with the monks, he just kind of like that's how it starts out, Iron Fist. He kind of he's walking through New York in his, like, raggedy monk clothes and barefoot, and then just walks into his family's tower. The Rand Corporation just walks in and thinks, oh, they're just going to welcome me with open arms, even though he's been missing for 10 years, So yeah, that's what it is. He's like, he doesn't understand our culture.
But
so that's kind of the way how I viewed the character. So everything, he does do a lot of stupid things, but I kept writing that off as being, well, he's just naive, And I guess it didn't bother me, but I see where John's coming from, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
It's actually really interesting to hear it from the perspective of somebody who did the first series with him, because it's because having seen Iron Fist the series, they could have, yes, he's supposed to be a fish out of water. He's supposed to be kind of naive about how things work here and all that. But I think he was, in the comic books, he was a font of wisdom. Okay, he might have missed a few social cues, and he might have done a few things that would seem naive to us. But overall, he was a much more stable person in the comic books than he's being portrayed in this series. Like, like JD, your first question was he an idiot? Well, yeah, actually, he is being portrayed kind of like an idiot. And I think it's a combination of the writing and, well, unfortunately, Finn Jones himself. He comes off as just this, basically a whiny bitch who gets angry at everything and, provides a lot of ample opportunity for his chi not to be achievable at just the right opportune moments.
Well, that was actually something I found myself wondering too. Not the writing part of it, the acting part of it, because I did forgive a lot of it in the Iron Fist series due to maybe direction. Like, maybe that was the direction he was being given. Like, act like you're emotionally unstable and you get upset at everything easily and blah blah. But I believe it's a different director for Defenders.
It was, yes, and yeah, it seems like he needs Prozac more than.
So again, they always say acting is choices.
No,
he's made some choices.
Yeah, no.
No, I think this because I didn't see Iron Fist. Like, I've been hearing so much negativity about Finn Jones, and granted, nobody ever watched Game of Thrones and said, "Man, Loras Tyrell is awesome." So, I mean, like, I don't know. Like, I watched this, and my first thought was, "This isn't that bad. Like, he's not that bad." So, I mean, like, I don't know if maybe I just expected the worst, and when he was passable, I kind of accepted the punches and rolled along with it. It didn't. I guess because I don't have the Iron Fist baggage from the show, which I guess is a benefit, because we both my wife and I are kind of like a little. It didn't take much to catch up with because it's so heavily steeped in the Iron Fist stuff. It wasn't that hard to catch up on, but I don't know. Like, it doesn't bother me, but I don't think you're wrong. Like, I think that it's clear that Marvel made an error with casting him, because you don't hear anybody ever say, "Man, Finn Jones was just great in Iron Fist." Like, I haven't heard anybody say that. Like,
right.
Well, right. And the thing is that I think Finn Jones could be passable with the right direction. Now, going from what what you said, in this he wasn't as bad in this series, The Defenders. He wasn't as bad as he was in his original series, and I think that does go towards better direction because the performances of everybody else were spot on. I mean, Luke Cage was always awesome as soon as he was on screen. Matt Murdock was I mean, he was his character, and he was perfect too. And Jessica Jones was, as always, just the get out of my face or I'll kick you to the moon. And by the way, where's my next beer? They all played perfectly, into it. The only other problems I had with the storyline were Foggy and what's her name?
Karen.
And Karen Page. Yeah, they were. I do not get the two of them constantly. Oh, we have to get him out of this. They're treating him like some kind of addict, and okay, I can see that side of it, but it's like they're completely oblivious to the fact that he's actually saving freaking lives. They're being completely self-centric.
I know to play. I think they're doing the whole cop wife motif thing. That's even a bad way to call it. But I mean, like, it's the whole thing of like, if this was real and you had a friend who was risking his life every day, who was actually blind, like let's suspend disbelief for a moment and say that this whole thing could be real. I mean, like, you would want your friend, in theory, you would want your friend not to die, right? And I think that's what it comes down to, is they don't want Matt Murdock to die because he is super powered, but they don't really know. Nobody but Matt Murdock knows how superpowered he really is. So they just think that this is their blind friend who's absolutely nuts.
Right, and I think it's also... I think it is also a play on that stereotype that we treat handicapped people differently.
Yes, that's a great call, Dave. Yeah, I agree with that.
So that's like, oh, well, yeah, if they might not say anything if it was their friend was Luke Cage because he's bulletproof and he's not handicapped. Even though Daredevil can see in a ways that we can't, they're still like, oh, no, you got to be careful. So,
well, yeah, but on the other side, all these people that he saved and their characters don't seem to be growing. And Foggy is, Eldon Henson as Foggy. He's a great guy. I like the character, but the character doesn't seem to be growing past this one note of, I have to get my friend out of this life that he's chosen because he could get hurt. He
hasn't given the room to grow. Like when you're in these kind of stories, your side characters don't get that kind of flexibility to grow. In the Daredevil show, he plays an intricate role. In this, he's just there to call out, hey, there's Foggy. Like, and I think those things. I think especially for Karen because she loves him. Like, he's gonna die. Like and he does sort of in this show. So they're right. Like all of Matt's natural inclinations lead to him dying. And if that's your friend or if that's someone you love, you're going to want them not to kill themselves because he's not a soldier. Well, he's not a cop. He's just a guy.
Yeah. And I get that. The only problem is on the other side, speaking as somebody who's like read thousands of books, a lot of when you're an author and when you're talking about characterizations like this in this kind of situation, the person that you're portraying as the one who's trying to keep the other person out of that kind of life to save their life, there's always the added dimension of, but he's doing this stuff. These characters are being portrayed as if they do not have any concept at all of the lives he's saving and whatever. And, he may die, but, that's what cops and firemen do every day. And you don't see everybody telling him, oh, you have to stay away. You don't want to get burned by the fire and die in the fire. Well, they're saving lives. That's what they do. I mean, you're right, though. They're tertiary characters in this series. So maybe, hopefully, in the next Daredevil, they'll be able to grow past this stage. Right.
Well, and also, there are cop wives who say they don't want their husbands to go out and patrol. And another thing is, I think you also have to keep in mind, and it's how I kind of approached it, is when we ended Daredevil Season 2, Matt was on his own. Karen had gone off to be a news reporter, and Foggy had gone off to another law firm and left Matt alone, and they kind of set it up like him and Foggy haven't talked since the end of Season 2 of Daredevil.
I know.
And when they separated, he was under the impression that Matt was giving the life up.
Yeah.
So when he sees him with his bruised knuckles, it's like, oh, you're at it again.
I just would have liked to have seen them done something else. They seem to have only been included in this series to be there to continually tell Matt, oh, you're going to die. Oh, you have to get out of this life. That's all they did. They didn't contribute at all. That was all they did every time they were on screen.
True. But
it's not that they don't have the room to contribute, because we said we got 4 main characters that we have to kind of balance. Like, I do think that the basis of all drama is conflict, right? All relationships in drama have to be built around a conflict. The conflict between Matt and his former coworkers is around the fact that he is actively killing himself every day. Like, my dad's an alcoholic. So, I mean, that's the first thing you learn when you're dealing with someone who's an alcoholic, is you didn't control it, you can't stop it, and there's nothing you can do until the person decides to change their life. And I think that's the way they're looking at it, is they have to get away from him, but at the same time they still care about him, and they don't see what he's doing as helping. Now, we can disagree with it, but again, the perspective is their perspective, and that's what the character relationship is based on.
True.
Is their worry is the friend they love is trying to kill himself, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. So I get that, but
I know, and we shouldn't belabor the point because there's a lot more to talk about, but I just want to add one more thing, is that, okay, from what you're saying on conflict, conflict is the basis of basically all storytelling, but you have to be able to get the people reading or watching invested in the conflict. And if your conflict is coming from one-dimensional characters that their only job on screen is to say, don't do this, you'll be killed, and then walk away, and then come back on screen again later to say, you're going to be killed. There's nothing to get invested with. You could have had a double-edged conflict where Foggy's sitting there saying, you're going to be killed, but then you save these people. And then have Foggy kind of question his own, why am I telling him to get out? He's saving these people, but I don't want my friend to die. There's a lot of and it would have only taken a half a minute of
Foggy gives him
one
the
scene
suit,
to
though,
set
too,
that up.
Foggy also gives him the suit, so Foggy in a way kind of enables it. Like, he might say one thing, but another, he's like, well, I was hoping he would do it at the end. But at the same time, he knows his purpose, and he protects the Matt Murdock character. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. I think the two characters accrue a lot of interest from two previous seasons of Daredevil, where we kind of know where they're coming from. They do have that backstory built up. So I do think the producers kind of lean into the previously established character development, but I think that it's there enough that, while you're right, they don't get the screen time to really portray what's going on, I think that it's not asking too much from the audience to kind of lean into what we already know about the characters.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm glad you brought that up, though, that where he gave him the suit and then said, what's family for? That was good.
Right. I mean, and also, if you want to continue with the tertiary characters, why was Trish and Malcolm in the show?
Call back to Jessica Jones.
Exactly. They didn't do anything other than have lunch with her, they didn't do anything to move the story forward. It's just, call back to Jessica and having her tertiary characters on.
And Trish is supposed to be Wildcat, right?
Eventually, hopefully.
Hellcat.
Yeah, what?
Hellcat, yeah.
I was wondering if they were going to set something up during this with her, but like you said, they didn't give her a whole lot of times. So
right.
Go ahead.
So we talked about Daredevil. We talked about Iron Fist, beat him to the ground. Talked a little bit about Daredevil.
Geez.
Luke Cage. Okay, so great again. Mike Cotter does a great job of portraying Luke Cage. The hesitant hero. But my only issue was when they introduce him and they show him being released from prison, they don't explain how he got out, and B, I'm kind of confused on the timeline. How long was he in there? Anyone else feel that?
Yeah, I was wondering, but they kind of covered that a little bit with Foggy being there, kind of insinuating that they had gotten him out early. I mean, they didn't explain it. I think they're going to just rely on do ex machina for that, but that's not something that that's not something we really care about. We can just suspend our disbelief to think, yeah, well, it was Matt Murdock. One of the first things he does in the series is get somebody an $11 million settlement. So, he's awesome. And so, and with Foggy and the entire Kate Moss and associates, behind him, I'm sure they were able to
Carrie Ann Moss?
so we can just accept that. Carrie-Anne Moss. Sorry, Kate Moss. Carrie-Anne.
Threw me for a second there.
Now,
The Moss person, the one that she probably got paid. She probably got paid as much as all of them put together, and she was only on screen for like 5 minutes.
At the end of the show, right? Someone at the end of Luke
I thought she did. I don't remember, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember why she took on his case. All right, okay. It seems like an interesting thing they didn't delve too much into, and I'm wondering if it's going to come back in like Luke Cage season 2.
I imagine so. I mean, they're pretty good about picking up loose plot threads in these Marvel stories. So I imagine if there's a hole somewhere, they'll attack it at some point.
Yeah. Well, unless it's underneath the building run by the hand, that they won't fill that hole.
Wah wah.
No, it's being run by the foot.
I almost made that.
But yeah, I mean, I think he knocked it out of the park again.
He's awesome.
He likes his Cuban coffee.
Every time he's on screen, all I can hear is the theme song from Shaft. He's just, and he walks on screen and he's got presence and the writing is good, obviously, because he literally just goes in and takes charge of any scene he's in.
And let's be honest, he's a very beautiful man.
I wouldn't.
My wife agrees with that 100%. My wife's a big fan of Luke Cage, and I am too. She's like, "You have a non-sexual crush on Luke Cage." I think you're right. Like you're right. Every time he's on screen, he's captivating, and like he's like the most earnest character in the Marvel universe aside from Captain America.
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, like every time, every scene he's doing it for the right reasons, and it's the character and the acting, the whole thing just absolutely works with Luke Cage in both shows, both 3 shows actually.
Right. Because don't forget he was in Jessica Jones. Which, that's another interesting one. So they definitely. They did a good job of laying a foundation for their relationship all throughout this, which also leaves in the back of your mind, wait, but he's with Claire.
Yeah, well, they've kind of put that off to this. I mean, it's off to the side now that they've Jessica Jones and Luke Cage are not really united anymore, and they seem to have gotten to the point where they're at least friends.
You watched the whole thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know
the scene at the end in the bar.
I know they're at least friends, and I know that there were some looks, and I know in the comic books that they wind up together and with baby. But
what did Jessica say to him in the bar before she left?
Damn it, I forget. Was she something?
She said we could get coffee sometime.
Oh, yeah, I know. It's just I don't want her. I don't want her Claire to get.
So I got to be honest. I didn't think Claire was going to make it. I was surprised that she survived.
Yes.
I thought she was the most expendable character, and knowing what the Luke and Jessica relationship winds up in the comics, I thought this might be the end of Rosario Dawson, and I was a little bummed out about it, and kind of happy that she didn't. But there's still a lot more ground to tread with those characters, so it's that was pretty cool.
In fact,
you thought they were shipping her ass off to Tahiti. Is that it?
Tahiti? No, they stopped Project Tahiti.
Oh.
So a little bit of a spoiler in the fight scene in the building at the end. With her with the wrench and I can't think of the other girl's name.
Misty Knight.
Luke Cage's. Luke Cage.
Misty
Not
Knight.
Misty Knight. The other one.
Colleen
Colleen
Wing.
Wing. That's it. Thank you. I'm blind for a second. They're fighting, and like I thought that's when she was going to bite it.
Me
And
too.
then when Misty came in, and I was like watching it, and I did not realize at first whose arm got cut off. I mean, I should have realized who it was right away.
Well, we were waiting for that. We thought in the last one where they tied her arm off because she was bleeding, and they said she could lose it.
Yeah.
But then she kept it in this one, and now.
Yes. So she will be like the Winter Soldier next time.
Although, again, yet another place where they did not mention something from the larger Marvel Universe by name, Stark Industries. They changed it to the hospital was owned by
Danny Rand.
Rand Corp.
Yeah, Rand Corp.
And but in the comics, wasn't it Iron Man? Wasn't it Stark Technologies that gave, or Stark Industries that gave her arm?
I'm going to say you're probably right, but
So I wondered that too. Now, part of me wonders if that isn't more to do with the behind the scenes Marvel politicking stuff. And I think that they can't. I think that's another reason why they have to call it. I think they were being slick about it first, calling it the incident. I think now they kind of do it just because they try to acknowledge the regular Marvel Cinematic stuff as little as possible. Like, it really is, the two things have really become islands unto themselves.
I know, but that's politics always ruins it for the fan. I mean, the reason all of this has worked is because it was one shared universe, and all us geeks are just geeking out every time a new one comes out, and we see something like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. pushing brooms behind where they just did the Chitauri invasion, and to have them start pulling it apart like this is, I know it is kind of jarring to me.
I think about
I don't disagree with you on that, but I think that's just kind of where we are right now. I mean, that's pretty much the entire reason we're getting an Inhumans movie that nobody wants is because of this whole thing with them, like with what's going on in Marvel.
Right. I mean, think about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. last season. There was no big tie-in to any of the movies where, and then it also makes you wonder things too. So it's like, who you're going to start. Not only do we have characters over at Fox that aren't ever going to intermix with the MCU now, or whoever's on TV isn't going to intermix with the MCU, so we're never going to get Ghost Rider in any of the movies,
Might get the Johnny Blaze Ghost Rider.
We're definitely not going to... It seems like we're not going to get Daredevil, Luke Cage, and those guys into any of the movies either, which seems a shame, especially with Infinity War, I think there's a lot of assumptions from fans like me that they were going to include them somehow in Infinity War, and obviously not now.
Which, again, sucks. But, okay, so let's move on a little bit. I mean, we've talked about the other three. What about Kristen Ritter? What about Jessica Jones? How do you feel about her?
I love her little turned up nose. No, so that's also, again, when I was talking about timelines. I got a feeling when we first saw her in the show, they almost, that conversation almost makes it feel like her season just ended. Did anyone else get that feeling?
I thought it felt like a couple of weeks or months.
Like, okay, like maybe a couple of weeks, but not. It didn't really feel like months. Like, and then of course she just rips the car off of the tow truck.
Oopsies.
And then I will say I had a slight issue with that. Like, they had Luke Cage being the heavy, and it didn't seem like they showed her using her strength as much this time around, or she never, flew, as it were, did one of her super jumps.
Well, her flying.
She did. When she got behind Daredevil, when Matt Murdock was trying to track her, he was tracking her, and then all of a sudden she was behind him. The only way she could do that is
they didn't
with
actually show her jump. But yeah, I guess that is a good assumption. She jumped over the building and then was behind him.
That's kind of iffy because they didn't even. There was nothing in that scene that really alluded to it. It's just an assumption,
Right.
True.
Yeah.
But how else would she? Yeah, I guess it's an assumption.
Yeah, well,
I think it's kind of
Matt Murdock in the way he can track people
deals.
because he was listening to her heartbeat or whatever. That would explain the puzzled look on his face.
Right, when she all of a sudden disappeared.
I thought she was awesome. I mean, she plays the character beautifully. Hopefully, not a method actor. And she.
So, is she the female version of you?
I wish I had super strength. I know you. I know you said about the heavy thing, but I mean, she used in every scene where she punched somebody, they went flying, and she was always like just lifting crap up and moving it over, and she threw that car through the front of the restaurant. So the only difference between them is that she could get hurt by a bullet, right?
Yes.
I mean, as far as I know, she doesn't. I mean, all mutants are. People in Marvel Universe technically have some level of healing factor, but she can get hurt and she can die from a bullet.
But I was thinking like the scene where they go into the stairwell into the building at the end. I would have liked to seen her pull the thing over to lock the door, not Luke Cage.
Yeah. Either way, her character was crucial to driving the entire plot because she was the one finding things out.
Yes. They showed her. They definitely showed her more as a detective in this than anyone else. And what was with Matt Murdock playing everything close to the chest as well? Now that we're talking about them figuring out the plot,
I don't know. Yeah. He was like they had to drag everything out of him. He wouldn't. I mean, he was trying to. I think if
it was all about protecting his friends,
right? But I would almost say that the level of anxiety that they were pushing onto him about his lifestyle would have been the rebound. Him keeping too much to himself.
I think a lot of it has to do with the guilt of He's still dealing with the guilt of Elektra's death, which, knowing the old Matt Murdock Catholic guilt style, he blames on himself, and he's trying to keep everybody away from him to keep, because it's a Peter Parker thing. Well, if people know too much about me, they're going to die. So I think that's kind of the major Matt Murdock, character motivation in this one.
But where she, but this not to get off on the Daredevil again. They showed her figuring out things, even though Matt figured out to play the piano. That was a weird scene.
That was a weird scene.
Did anyone? Okay, am I the only one? JD, you agree? How about you, John? When they go to visit the girl, and Matt decides, "Oh, let me play the piano," and then he hits the note and realizes there's paper in there.
That was a case of plot-induced convenience.
He rolled a natural 20 on his search ability. That's all.
I don't even get that one.
Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh, I missed Dungeons and Dragons. Okay.
But yeah,
that's what happens when you roll a natural 20 in your search. You just suddenly, wait, I think this looks interesting over here.
And again, it made it weird because it seemed like, it was Jessica's case. She was putting things together, and then he's the one that found the blueprints. It's just like, really?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I know it sounded like they were kind of fishing her for information to try and figure out what their next step was, or anything else that they could use. But that was kind of writer writes himself into quarter, and what do I do? Matt, piano. There we go.
Yeah, that's probably it.
But so all right, that takes care of them. Oh, we haven't talked about Sigourney Weaver.
Oh, no, we haven't. The big baddie, or was she?
Sigourney Weaver was awesome, right up to the point where she decided not to be awesome and took her check and left.
So, all right. So, she's Sigourney Weaver. She's a wonderful actress. She's proven it time and time again. And if she's going to play bad, she plays bad. So they give us a character that is not only the kind of the head of the hand, but she's also dying, and it's through this is when we discover that they're out of, quote unquote, the substance that brings them back to life, because she used that to bring the Black Sky, Elektra, back to life. And so they do such a great job of almost portraying, in my mind, that the rest of the hand is afraid of her, that I was waiting for that moment where she was going to do something that was like, oh my goodness. And then she was killed before she got that chance.
Because Madame Gao, who is, I think we can assume she is, what do they call her? Madame Queen or something? Yeah.
Right.
I didn't think there was anybody she was afraid of. And we've seen her, like you said, we're waiting for Alexandra to do something that would elicit this kind of respect and fear from the rest of the hand. But we've seen Madame Gao use chi abilities to throw people across rooms and
to blow doors off hands, blow the doors off of hinges, right? Like all this stuff.
So it was, I was wondering, right up into the end where, not exactly the end, because she didn't last until the end.
No.
What'd you think, JD?
I thought the way I read the character was she used to be something really scary, and now she's kind of on her last limb and kind of put all her eggs in the one basket, trying to go out one last time. The way I read the character is she's not as good as she once was, and she's trying to keep it together. So I can see now. I totally can understand if someone says that's not a very intimidating character. I think that's very human. For a person who's trying to be immortal, I find that to be very human motivations, and like she's afraid of dying, and that's how I read the character. She's a lot of bravado and bluster, and it turns out to be like she's a giant failure, which I don't think was ever seen from a villain before. I'm just thinking up top of my head, we don't really see these characters with these grand machinations that just completely fail.
Well, you haven't seen Iron Fist.
I haven't, so I can't comment on that.
Yeah, talk about plans that go completely down the tubes.
I can't comment on it.
It's one of those things where there's a quote from Team 4-Star that goes along here. Is at the end of My brain just completely blanked. At the end of the Iron Fist series, it should have been everybody looking at Danny going, "Well, thank God we were so incompetent."
Okay, hold on a second. You guys just made me realize something,
What?
and it's going to be lost on JD because he didn't watch Iron Fist. Okay, but in Iron Fist, the father, what's his name? No, Ward was the son. Who was the Mitchum? Right? There was Ward Mitchum, Joy Mitchum, and then Harold. Harold Mitchum,
Yes,
right?
Harold Meacham.
Meacham,
Yeah.
right? So he's the father of the people running Rand Corporation when Danny comes back, and he's working with the Hand. Okay, fine. They kill him and put him out to pasture, or his son buries him in a shallow grave, and he comes back to life.
They
right?
gave him the quote unquote substance.
They gave him the substance, but they make it seem like in the Defenders that they need the substance every time. But yet, in the previous incarnation, or at least in Iron Fist, they didn't show them injecting him with the substance when he died. Like, he just came back to life on his own.
Well, they never really said that. It's just that they kept saying they were out. So it could be that if they haven't had it for a while, they can't resurrect them.
Maybe that's okay. All right, I'll take that explanation, because that was something that bothered me. Like, wait, why does she need it? Why is it a big deal that she ran out of it if they've used it already?
Yeah. You're welcome, writers. You can use that. I give you.
All right, good. Crisis averted.
All right. That takes care of the Fab Four and Sigourney Weaver, and we've talked about most of the sidekicks. But we've still got Elektra, Stick, and Rosario Dawson to talk about.
Well, let's talk about Stick real quick. I mean, of course, it's no surprise that he was in this because his whole spiel in Daredevil was getting him ready for this war. So, of course, he was going to show up in it. And then he really wasn't a good guy. I mean, he never really was 100% a good guy.
No, he was the best out of them all. He was the only one willing to do what it took to stop the Hand.
But he was going to kill Danny. And I know you don't like Danny, so you were okay with that plan.
I'm saying, where's the downside with what you're saying? I'm not getting it.
But no, that wasn't the answer.
Well, they'll just make another Iron Fist. Maybe the next one will be better. I don't know.
No.
Yeah, I mean, you've always...
And I kind of feel like they made him seem really dark in this so that you didn't feel as bad when, he gets killed. Maybe I'm wrong, but I kind of feel like that was the writing trick.
Well, I don't know. I kind of get the feeling from the writing and from seeing him in the other series is that he's just this grizzled old warrior that is really, really tired of fighting the same battle. And he's gotten to the point now where he just doesn't give a fuck anymore. And he's going to do whatever it takes to win, no matter what bodies he has to step over.
I think it's a totally great character. Yeah.
Right. Yes. Killed by a former student.
Well, again, Danny Rand, no big loss. But, yeah, and killed by a former student that, she wasn't herself, which, segueing, yeah, so they used the last of the substance on her, but I guess it was because she was supposedly the Black Sky that she didn't have her memories and didn't resurrect the same as everybody else.
But then she did have her memories by the end.
Somewhat. She wasn't the same personality,
She remembered. No, but that was, that's kind of something they portray. They kind of portrayed on the shows a little bit, especially in Iron Fist, again, with Ward, or not Ward. When he came back to life, he was crazier every time they brought him back.
Harold Meacham. Yeah.
Harold. Every time Harold came back to life, he was a little more crazy. So, like the Lazarus Pit. Someone comes back.
All right.
So they have to steal something from DC. So yeah, so she was a little crazy. That's all. You know how women get once in a while.
I don't know.
She was pretty crazy before, though.
Well, that's true too. She really wasn't playing with a full deck before she died.
Yeah, but she was more wild child then, rather than ravenous revenant.
She's got trained to be too. So I think you put those two together, and It made sense. Like, she was, like, clearly Alexandra steers her in a direction as the Black Sky, and rather than being the tool, she just said, hey, I could just be in charge of this whole thing, which makes sense with the Electric character. So I think that the composite character makes sense when you put the two of them together.
Yeah.
I think that it works.
Nothing else. There were still no hints as to where the quote-unquote Black Sky came from and how she became the Black Sky, or how they knew that was going to be a thing. I mean, if anything, that might have been Alexandra's power, was see the future or something.
Yeah.
But then again, if that were the case, she would have seen herself get
impaled.
Well, quite literally stabbed in the back.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, they always talk about the Black Sky and the Black Sky being a weapon, but is it just because they're trained as a really good assassin, or is there something more to them? They don't go into that at all.
No.
So, they don't have glowing hands.
Yeah.
Like the Iron Fist.
But they do have personalities, which is a plus.
You're not going to let this go.
No, man, I am not.
You're like a dog with a bone.
Well, this is what you pay me for. Or this is what I drink for. One of those two.
Yeah, I think it's the drinking part.
Have we missed... Okay, does anybody else want to talk about anything else? Anything that we missed? Is there anything... in the end, we find out that it was... Okay, major spoilers. We find out that what they've been after is a dragon, although it's only the bones of the dragon, and they're looking for the quote-unquote substance, so I'm assuming that this is some kind of weird Japanese/Chinese thing where they grind up the bones and turn it into something.
They're making it into gelatin.
Oh, okay.
Jello is the substance.
Right, but they can only do it with dragons, and apparently there are buried dragons all over the world.
Well, at least in New York, there was. Yeah, I mean, that was interesting. I wasn't really expecting that so that's something we didn't talk about. So obviously the whole main plot is the hand is after Danny, not because they want to recruit him as a weapon, but because he's a key to open up
which he
this
did in the most
door that's locked
whiny
underneath
bitch fashion
of their building. So those who
oh, come on, he did. It's like, oh, I'm the key to this thing. They want me to open this, so I'll just use my hand and let her, just push me right into it. Oops.
I thought that was cheesy. When they were fighting and he turns on the Iron Fist and he's going to punch her and she jumps out of the way and he hits the wall and that opens it. And it was like, well, wait a minute. Would it be the same exact, maneuvered? I don't know. It just seemed weird.
That's like...
Yeah,
it's a trope. What'd you say, JD?
Oh, nothing. I was agreeing. No, it's that whole... Danny, that's what I said. Danny's kind of dumb. So I mean that's the biggest example of it.
I love your first question, but I was like, I kind of thought he was an idiot. Is that what he?
Yeah, I mean, they shouldn't have been fighting right next to the door if all he had to do was punch it with the Iron Fist. That's
yeah, and then he just allows himself to be used. I mean, Danny, man, if you weren't around, none of this would have happened. That's what really ticks me off. If he had never gone back to New York, none of this would have happened. He's the reason why all of this happened. He's making all of his own problems. And everybody else is just cleaning up behind him.
That is an interesting concept, right? Because he decided to leave Kunlun to go back to his hometown in New York, which also happens to be where the hand was digging to get to those bones. And it's like, but yeah, if he had just stayed in New York... stayed in Kunlun, none of this would have happened. And
the hand would have died out because they didn't have any more of the substance.
Right. That was the best thing would have been to do was just to stay put for another 10 years.
Or to die, but either one. You say tomato, I say kill him, but
Now.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those philosophical things, but it's like, yeah.
But it's an overused trope, and it's a writing crutch too, where you can't find if you're either not smart enough or don't take the time to put together a good plot line, then the best plot is to have your main character cause everything and then have to fix it. Which, in real life that can happen, but in this sense, I would have expected better writing.
Yeah.
I don't understand. I don't know. Wait, say it again, John. You lost me. Like, it's bad writing to have your main character do everything?
If your main character, if you can't find, if you don't have, like, a plot that's encompassing other characters and in the world, you don't have like a large world build, right? Then what you do is you have your main character cause the problem that he then has to fix.
That's how you write. Like the whole point of that's the whole point of a story is you have a main character, his decisions and he has a goal. Someone's trying to stop him from his goal, and all of his decisions move the story.
Right, but
so I'm confused on what you're saying.
But
is the crutch.
his original decisions were the ones that caused all the problems to begin with. That's the thing, you know.
That's the entire noir concept. Like every noir story is built on a character makes gigantic mistakes, and like the fallout is the story. So I mean, I don't know if that's a crutch. I mean, there's an entire genre of storytelling built around that, and it's character flaws that make some of the most interesting stories. I'm not putting that in this story, believe me. But I'm just saying, like, it's the mistakes of characters and how they screw up that oftentimes make for the most interesting storytelling.
Right, I'll grant you that, but in that case, then only one of two things can happen. The only thing that can happen at this point actually is that in the next Iron Fist, he realizes that he's caused all of his own problems, and he grows to the point, and hopefully is written to the point, where he then takes responsibility for it and starts fixing problems that he did not cause, and stops causing other problems.
So I'm gonna real quick, like,
yep,
Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? If Indiana Jones never shows up, never does anything, the Nazis take the Ark of the Covenant back to Berlin and they all die. Right? But he does show up, and like but I mean, because the character is so interesting and intriguing, we never think about those things. Or at least you're not supposed to think about those. So I mean, like, this is where character kind of, and this is like in writing, you especially talk about characters being significantly more important than plot. So if our characters are interesting and intriguing and get us along with the story, we're supposed to be able to forget a lot of the plot stuff. Guardians of the Galaxy being the best example of it. Like, the plot for Guardians of the Galaxy, paper thin, but it's awesome because of the characters. I think this is like the backside of that. It's because the character of Danny Rand is flawed in not so much in the good way of a character being flawed in his creation, flawed in the execution, flawed in just about every way that, you know, you create a character. It's just not, it doesn't quite hold on its own. That, like, these holes become a little bit more glaring, you know? Whereas, like, if the character flaws should be the most interesting parts of a character, you know?
Right. But to use your own example, if Indiana Jones hadn't showed up, the Nazis would have gotten the Ark of the Covenant and won. If Danny Rand had never showed up, the hand would have died out and everybody would have been better off.
No.
Yeah, you're right. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong in that at all, because you're spot on. That is exactly what it is. But I mean, again, I think what they're going for is Danny Rand trying to do the right thing creates the wrong thing, and in theory, you got a redemption story where I got to overcome my mistake to get better, and it just really isn't done like that. Especially because it kind of sets it up really well with him screwing up monumentally, and first getting captured, second opening up the door to find the dragon, and like it never really has that moment to kind of redeem himself. Thank you. Like, I just think that and I think that's in team storytelling. You want to have he doesn't redeem himself, that he is redeemed through the team. But I do think there's something lost in that. I don't think you're wrong, but I see where I kind of get where the writers were going with this. But I also see where you were going.
So we're getting close to an hour. So and we've dissected Danny Rand so much.
I know.
We skipped a lot of the major plot points, but like the basic plot, like you said, the plot of it is actually pretty thin. Of Defenders, the hand wants to capture Danny to use him as a key to open up the door so they can get the bones so they can live forever, and the Defenders want to keep him away from them, and of course through screw ups he gets captured, unlocks the door. And we get to our final confrontation underground, where everyone's fighting, and the hands killed Wolf one by one, basically, until we're left with Daredevil and Elektra fighting at the end. And so here's the thing. Okay, I got really mad when I saw what was coming, where Daredevil keeps fighting Elektra to let the others escape. And the bombs were set, the building was about to blow up, and it was like, no, they're not going to. No, they're not going to do this. No, they're not going to do this. No. and they blow up the building with Daredevil underground. So
Okay.
when you guys saw that, did you immediately? What was your reaction before we get to the end? What was your reaction to them collapsing the building with Daredevil inside?
Go ahead, JD.
I was like, you can't do this, and I cheated and grabbed my phone, went to Wikipedia, and spoiled the end for myself to make myself feel better because I was it worked so well on me. Like seeing Daredevil die was like, no. Oh, okay. So that's what I did. Yeah, it got me.
I did not go and spoil it. I was mad at the TV watching the end, watching Foggy and Karen in the church. Praying over his death, and I was just like, no. And of course, spoilers. The show, the very last scene is him waking up in a hospital-looking bed with a nun sitting on the side of his bed, and she calls for Sister Maggie. And for those of us that are Daredevil fans, we all know who Sister Maggie is.
Which would mean I don't. Sister Maggie.
It's his mother.
Oh,
yeah.
That's the end is basically the beginning, like one of the most famous images from the Born Again.
Right.
Frank Miller's Born Again.
Oh, cool.
So I think Daredevil season 3 will be their version of Born Again.
Most likely, yeah.
All right. Personally, for me, the end, they made Elektra powerful enough that, if he hadn't kept her busy, she would have taken the rest of them down, or at least kept them there, So, and they nearly almost didn't get out themselves because they had to climb because all the minions took out the elevator. So I didn't have any problem with that ending. I was worried about how they were going to write him out of, what was basically an entire building falling down a large hole. Boy, we had a lot of jokes about that first Daredevil review. But yeah, I mean, I'd like to know how that happened, and if he made it, then Elektra definitely made it. But yeah, I thought the ending was pretty good.
Though I did feel that it was a trope that the building collapsing in on itself was enough to fill the hole and settle all the tremors that were going on in the city. It was like, come on. I don't know if that's how physics really works.
This is a world where we had a portal to an alien universe, and they were raining down monsters or spaceship monsters, and you killed the main one, and the rest of them just dropped dead. So if I could suspend my disbelief for the end of Avengers, this one works just fine for me.
Okay, fine. Yes, and so where does that leave all of our characters? Going forward. Obviously, they do set up Born Again for Daredevil for season 3. Danny is with Colleen, and he's like, oh, New York finally feels like my home. I don't know what that means. I kind of wonder, he spent his whole life fighting the Hand, and they kind of ended the Hand, or at least the known leaders in this. So are they going to get...
He said that Murdoch also told him to protect my city.
No, that's true. And that's right. I forgot the final shot of him on top of the building, because at first you think it might be Daredevil, and then his fist glows, and you see it's him waiting on top of a building. So,
and we know Madame Gao is still up, at least at the very least.
So the Hand will be back, a version of a more traditional version of the Hand, I guess you could say.
Probably, yeah. And of course, Luke goes off with Claire, kind of. But then our final scene with, as we alluded to already, our final scene with Jessica is her and Luke in a bar talking and, saying, oh, really glad I got to spend this time with you. And her saying, oh, maybe we have coffee sometime. And we all know what coffee means to Luke Cage.
But Jessica also reopened her.
Yes.
It was good. And well, right, that takes care of everybody.
Right, and I did answer the question that we had in a episode not too long ago. Is the Punisher going to make a cameo? And he didn't.
Yeah.
The answer is no.
So I guess he was too busy filming his season that they couldn't take him away for a 5-minute cameo.
I'm kind of glad. I mean, if he's going to show up, I want him to mean something, not just show up just to go, oh, hey, there's the Punisher. I'd rather a character like him shows up, he means something.
Yeah, because when it was getting near the end and he hasn't shown up yet, I'm like, Are they going to have a cheesy thing where he's just on a rooftop popping some shots and that's it, to help them out real quick? Like, yeah, right. I don't want a cameo like that. So,
well, it would have been hard to fit him in with the Wolverine cameo, Or is that just me?
Yeah,
that's probably.
I think that was the Blackberry brandy.
Well, I was watching for like 9 hours straight, so I needed something to help me keep my interest up.
Oh, it wasn't interesting enough?
Oh, no, it was. It was just, you had to offset Danny's whining.
All right. So, there we go. That was the Defenders. Let's, as always, go around the room, give our final thoughts, and then give a rating 1 out of 10. And we'll start with JD.
So I'm going to nerd out over the actual filmmaking of the show for a second.
Sure.
What I love most is how each of those shows, like the characters were connected with a specific color with a color theme. Luke Cage, like the show is lit very yellow. Mm. There's always a yellow gel on him. Like there's a lot of the yellow treatment done in the film. Daredevil had this red motif going. Jessica Jones was very cold and had this blue. And I guess Iron Fist had a green thing. I didn't see the show, so I can't comment on that. What I really liked is how they continued that. And my favorite scene in the whole show is the Chinese restaurant, where all of those colors are being played off of each other. And when they're having these scenes with conflict, you'll see the main, like I remember there's one specifically, Iron Fist, he's dressed in green, he's definitely got a green gel hitting him. Mm-hmm. And in the background you see, because he's talking to Daredevil, they're just red just blows up, like right in the back. And then they cut back to Daredevil, and it's the same thing. He's lit with red, and the background is green, and the stuff like that. And they cut away to Luke Cage, and he's by himself, and it's all yellow. It worked so, like, stuff like that, like, always stands out in filmmaking to me. And that was really cool. I really like how they kept that going, because each of those shows had their own feel and vibe to it. And the cutaways, when they were just introducing the characters, all played to that strength. And when they came together, they found a really cool way to tie them in thematically that worked in with what they were going color scheme-wise really, really well. Like, I was a big fan of that. I liked the fight choreography. I liked the way it was shot. I liked that they used these very long takes, a lot of steady cam work. And it was really cool to see something like that. I know these shows aren't done on a huge budget, and I know some people were hard on the Iron Fist choreography, which I couldn't comment about. But I thought it reminded me a lot of Daredevil season 1, which had some just fantastic fight choreography, and the way the hallway scene is now like damn near legendary. And I think that some of these things were trying to ape that a little bit. I think it worked for the most part. Like I was a real big fan of the cinematography, and I give it I'm going to give it 8 glowing Iron Fists.
Perfect. John?
I'm still trying to not make some really bad jokes because we're family friendly. Okay, so this show makes me really not want to have to wait to see the next Jessica Jones and Luke Cage and Daredevil and Punisher. It would depend on what they do with Iron Fist next. I think they need some new writers, or at least a much better director, or somebody with at least a better vision for that character. Because right now the character basically is a wrecking ball. We need to see a heroic side of him and a wise side of him, like is portrayed in most of the comics. The show, as for the Defenders. Let me put it to you this way. So we got two of the biggest scenes in the show in the end of episode 3. We got Danny being a complete idiot, walking in and trying to school the Hand, and I'm going to tell on you all and see you, and all that, which was really making me cringe. And then they started to attack him, and then Luke Cage walked in, and everything was good. And then the next 15 minutes of that episode were just pure awesome, with all of them fighting and meeting each other. It was just great. So overall, I love the show. I can't wait to see if they're going to elevate some of the background characters we've been watching, like Misty and Hellcat. And I think they're going in a good direction. I just hope also that they will stop with this putting a wall between them and the MCU, the movie universe, and just continue to tie them together. I don't want to have to see Iron Man flying around in the background, or except that would be completely awesome. But I'd at least like to hear them say, yeah, when the Chitauri attacked instead of incident, the interregnum, the catastrophe, the apocalypse, whatever they want to call it. So overall, this was a great installment. I am going to give it in honor of today, where we were recording this, which is Monday, August 21st. I am going to give it 8.5 eclipses.
Iron fists and eclipses all around. Cool. So I am definitely going to agree with JD. The fight choreography was great in this. It was a definite step up from the Iron Fist choreography as well. Like, I saw someone online complaining that Danny didn't know how to fight, and it was like, but he looked a lot better fighting here than he did in Iron Fist. So, and there's, again, he wasn't perfect, but there is a lot of baggage that came over from that show. So yeah, the choreography was great. All the roles, in my opinion, were done well. Maybe Danny was a little too emotional child, at times. And, it was just high stakes enough. It really wasn't them fighting for the world, in the sense that, they weren't fighting Ultron, they weren't fighting Loki, they weren't having a civil war among themselves. But it was just the right it was written at just the right level for those four characters to come together and stop something. So, it was done really well. I can't recommend it enough. I think if you're a fan of any of these Netflix series, you have to go and check this. Even if you didn't like Iron Fist, I think you got to go check this out. It was still good. So, that being said, I'm going to stick with 8 capes. I'm going to stick with capes because, that was something we came up a long time ago, and I'm a traditionalist. So we got 8 capes, 9 fists, and 8.5 eclipses. So I think that's high praise from us.
Wow, it was good. Can't wait to see the next one. They're going to do another Defenders, I guess.
Oh, I think so. After this, it's been very well received, and but next is going to be The Punisher. I don't know what the release date is, if they've come out with it yet. I'm sure there might be people out there who know the release date and they're yelling at their screens right now or their iPods, but we'll save that for another time. So until then, boys and girls, as always, don't let your cape get caught in the door. Have a good week.